Today, we are excited to welcome Natalie Friedl. As Executive Director of the Cleveland Kids Book Bank, Natalie spearheads efforts to improve childhood literacy and foster a lifelong love of reading by distributing free books to children. She envisions a world where every child experiences the transformative magic of reading. Driven by her passion for equitable access to education and health, she is committed to creating a safe, healthier, and more inclusive world for all, including her four sons. Natalie began her career as a high school English teacher before transitioning to nonprofit leadership through fundraising and development roles. Her career reflects a steadfast dedication to strengthening communities and empowering individuals through education, literacy, and opportunity. And she is a graduate of our Cleveland Bridge Builders class of 2019. Please welcome Natalie.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Rachel, and everyone for taking some time here today to hear this story. Stories are so important, and being able to share this one is such an honor. So take a minute and think back to when you were a child and you'd walk into a library or a bookstore and you could actually smell the books, right? Who knew that there was a scent to that? Or were you one of those kids like me who was always asking, please read one more book at bedtime? I was one who always had a book in my hand or a bag with me at all times. That was for when my surroundings became more than I could handle and I needed to escape. Some of us still do that today with books. It's such a great honor to be able to read. What was my favorite? I'm glad you asked. I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours. So in the chat, please share your favorite book from your childhood. And while you're doing that, I'm going to share how the Kids Book Bank story became a part of mine. You know those choose your own adventure stories? Those were my favorites. I often think of them as I'm making big decisions, and then I often wish I could go back and see what would have happened if I made the other one. Because I had access to lots of books and caring adults and Sesame Street, I fell in love with reading and writing and communicating. You couple that with my desire to make the world a better place and what my parents would describe as a given talent to ask for money. I couldn't be more excited to help write the next chapter of the Kids Book Bank. So while you may be multitasking or trying to get in some lunch, I hope you'll pause for a little story time. Long ago, in one of the most amazing cities in the world, where people realized that by sharing what they had with others, they could make the world a better place. There lived a man with a white beard who many thought was Santa Claus because of the gifts he left behind. Wherever he went, cleverly painted wooden doll houses on mounted stands would appear, and then they would be filled with books. He must have elves. And thank goodness he did, because someone had bigger plans for Mr. Bob Cheshire, who passed away on May 14th of 2013. He was one of the first advocates to get these little free libraries all across our community. So 3 of his most creative, hardworking, and resourceful elves got to work, crafting the pages that would soon become this story. No one ever dreamed, no one could have imagined, and certainly no one would have expected that within 8 years, this idea of getting books into kids' hands would result in over 4.5 million free books to children all over our amazing city. But how? How could 3 elves do such work? Well, the answer has already been told. Remember where this story takes place? That's right, in Cleveland. You see, my friends, it's all kinds of magic here. Time, talent, and treasure are what made all that you see around you. And the Kids Book Bank is no exception. This community rallied around the idea that all children should have books in their homes, lots of them, and lots of different kinds. But where would they come from? And how would they get to those who need them? Wait, have you heard this story before? Are you already a part of it? Have you volunteered, donated books, ordered books, made a financial contribution? Type first chapter in the chat because you are already a part of the story. And while you're doing that, we will turn the page. So those elves are still here, making a huge impact. Margaret Bernstein is a Kids Book Bank champion. Judy Payne, co-founder, remains a Kids Book Bank champion and a member of our Next Chapter campaign committee. And Judy Kovach, co-founder, is currently the board president. Our 15-member board and 40-member associate board, along with an amazing staff of 4 full-time and 11 part-time employees, get to live this amazing mission every day. And you could be a part of it too. It feels like every day we get to meet new people who, unbeknownst to us, are out there running book drives, collecting books, having fundraisers, and even purchasing new books from our wish list on Amazon, all for our kids. 70% of the books that come through our doors are from you all, the community. The other 30% come from outside the community. We might purchase from a used bookstore, but we know that 4% of the books we get are the mirrors, the ones where kids can see themselves. And we all want to read stories that we can relate to and see characters that look like us. So we do a Books Like Me campaign that allows us to add approximately 30,000 books each year of new, diverse books to our reading level boxes and to our marketplace, where teachers and individuals can buy book sets and do classroom reads or encourage students to read a book together. Where do these books go? Well, aside from filling little free libraries and stocking community bookshelves and rec centers and healthcare centers, we rely heavily on our partners who connect with families to help us get our books into the hands and homes of our children. It works because we know that the books are coming from someone they trust, and it just feels good. So our partners help get them out, and between the books coming in and the books going out, who's doing all the work? Over 12,000 volunteers have come through our doors, working shifts and listening to music and having even private parties. The volunteer experience is magical. It's nostalgic, it's meaningful, it's mostly fun. With Devin and the music and snacks and lots of laughter and sharing your own personal stories with each other, we get to connect. It makes one forget that it might be a little crowded in here, that it might be too hot in here, it might be too cold, and maybe even a little too wet at times. And that is if you can get on our calendar, because we have a waiting list for volunteers. But we want you to. So that leads me to the next chapter of our story. See, this here is our current space, which staff and volunteers have made into a magical place, and you can feel the love. But the reality is the demand is bigger than what we can produce. Currently doing 45,000 books a month, we are unable to meet the demand that is coming from the community. The only limitation we have is this space, because we have so many caring individuals who want to come in and help us get these books out. The orders keep coming, and so do the opportunities to share our resources and collaborate with other literacy organizations and other partners throughout Cleveland. So we know that a bigger space that could bring people together would be really amazing. So imagine a space where we didn't have safety concerns or limited capacity and facility challenges, and we had actual opportunities for increased impact, collaboration, and even to have kids on site. We can engage more of the community that way. This is what it could be. A future home where we could have collaboration and more impact. The story continues. There was a neighborhood in Cleveland called Slavic Village and another white bearded man gathered people, caring people around a table. And he would share the story of an amazing city, but something was terribly wrong. The children weren't reading, and it was affecting other things like their health and the financial literacy and employment readiness. Kurt Carrickle shouted, "Wait, if we teach these kids to read, all things get better. All of our kids need to read. We are having a literacy emergency. We can't wait." And this is still an emergency, not just in Cleveland, but across the country. And I believe that Cleveland could be a model community that changes how we treat our children and how we can get them reading. Reading is magical, but it's not magic. It takes teaching and practice, and at the very beginning, access to books. Take what you can from today and share that having books in the home cannot be a privilege afforded to only a few. We can supplement all the amazing work that parents and teachers and caring adults do every day, teaching our kids to read, by ensuring that all books find a home and all homes have books. There are lots of ways that you can help, and here are just a few. We have some information sessions coming up next week, a books and brunch, a happy hour mixer, and you can attend a virtual info session that will be happening on Wednesdays from 12 to 12:30. You can share this information with your network. You can volunteer or host a party. You can run a book drive, and you can donate today. We have links in the chat so that you can go ahead and register for those sessions and come in and see for yourself what 5,500 square feet looks like putting out 45,000 books. I appreciate the time that you took today to listen about the Kids Book Bank. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. If you are a part of the first chapter, thank you so much. We hope you'll join us for the next chapter. And if you're just learning about us, come find out some more.
Natalie, thank you so much. So let's jump in and learn a little bit more about the work of the Kids Book Bank. So you mentioned how many books are moving through your organization. That's quite the operation to get the books into the hands of partners. Can you talk about what that process looks like in distributing books, and are there spaces you're looking to get into?
Absolutely. So geography is really one of the first questions people ask us, right? So where do you distribute the books? And over the past 8 years, we've been really focused on distributing books in Cuyahoga County and Greater Cleveland. We have expanded a little bit into the Lorain County based on need and demand, and we're open to wherever the need is. But we definitely want to make sure that we are serving the community that we are in first and foremost. The books come in from our extended suburban communities as well as all the inner ring suburbs. You'll see 22 blue bins that will collect the books, and those can be found on our website. So the books come in either that way or through book drives. And once they're here, the volunteer process and the processing of the books take place. But what's really unique about our book bank is that we check the books 3 different times for quality. We make sure that um, the person who's getting the book feels like it's new to them, right? We want to make sure that's really important to us. We also want to make sure that the people ordering the books, all of our partners, which can be anyone who's serving families, as long as the books are going home to kids that need the books, we accept orders online for any of those books. And you can order them by reading level, which is also really unique. You're not getting just a box of books that you may or may not be able to use. It's very specific. And you can order those new books that I was referring to off of the marketplace for class reads. We have some sports fanatics that are coaching baseball or basketball, and they'll order a set of books to read with their team. So once you order those books, there's a turnaround time of, I would say, like 2 to 3 weeks, and they can be delivered to the partner, or the partner can come on site and pick them up. And the boxes are we keep them small. They're about 30 books per box so that you can carry them. And you can order on a recurring basis as well. So we're getting really fancy. Does that answer that question?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. So you've mentioned partners, and obviously, a lot of this work can't happen without some of those collaborations. So, who are some of your key collaborators? And are there partnerships and collaborations that you're seeking in order to continue to move your work forward?
Yes, and I do remember that as the end of that last question, and we do have lots of space we do want to be in. So our largest partners are the ones you would expect, the schools, right? Teachers are ordering from us on a regular basis. And what you may or may not know is that a lot of our schools are closing their libraries in the school. They're usually turning into tech centers or computer labs and that sort of thing. So kids either have to go to our public libraries, which we strongly encourage, or have their parents purchasing books. And both of those options are really challenging, even, for any mom or dad. Or caring adults. So it's important that there is a way that the caring adults that are in these families' lives can get those books to them. We also distribute through food pantries. We distribute through faith-based organizations and home visiting organizations. Um, our Jessica Walsh Frazier, who's on our call, goes out and she's responsible for all of our new business. So if a new partner wants books, that's who you would contact. But we have over 1,700 partners in our system, and a lot of them are actively ordering books on a regular basis, sometimes for an event that happens once a year, or maybe it's on a weekly basis because they're seeing that level of need with their families. Um, so where we would like to continue to expand, we've done a lot of work in the healthcare systems by putting in these community bookshelves, and we are looking to really establish strong relationships with early child care providers. So between those two, Jessica's done a great job. We're in most of the recreation centers already, but we do feel that, when you're in the waiting room at a healthcare facility, that's a great place. We want them to take the books home with them. And it also gives them something to do in the waiting room. And then any of our early child care providers, daycare providers can be ordering from us as well.
Do the schools or families need access to storage for the books?
So we've already bantered around the idea of bookshelves, right? So that is something that we have a group of people working on to create bookshelves that could go home so that so that these kids have books. Some of our partners that serve foster kids, they're really excited about like a portable bookshelf. But you're right, it does matter, and having bookshelves would be a great resource for families, and we're looking into that as well. Um, but as you know, there's not enough. You can't have too many, right? But they also know that once they exit a reading level or advance to the next reading level, that those books can go then to someone who needs them. And so we encourage that as well. And they're constantly getting new books in based on off of their reading levels.
You mentioned the Books Like Me campaign. Can you share a bit more about the evolution of this campaign and some of the feedback you've heard for those who have been a part of it?
Absolutely. It's really important. And you don't give it much thought, right? You pick up a book and maybe it has an animal on it or characters in it. But as you get older, I remember specifically feeling like a character in a story. And even picking up a book, if it doesn't resonate with you, you're not really going to want to read it, right? So the Books Like Me campaign really emphasizes not just our ability to raise funds for the purchasing of those new books that are always diverse. Anything that we purchase, we make sure is diverse um, in its content, in its characters, all of those things. And so we've gotten great feedback about that, especially when it comes to the books that go out through the marketplace that teachers are able to distribute. And when a classroom gets a box of books, and there's maybe 4 or 5 books that represent the diversity that's in the classroom. You know, those kids all want those books. So we really need to make sure that that happens more and more. And but I also stress, and I've said this before, I don't believe that those are the only places diverse books need to be, right? They need to be on the bookshelves of all homes. So that's how we become, we walk through the doors and see through the windows into other people's lives. I'll let you answer the question. Yes.
So, as you think about the first chapter, what are some of those great success stories and outcomes from the first few years of the book bank?
Sure. The first chapter, I almost wish I was here for it, but I almost feel like I have been because the Judys are still here. A lot of our staff was here for it. We have a lot of board members that have been here since the beginning, and so many volunteers and partners as well, right? So the first chapter was inundated with a lot of magic, like things just happening. They weren't sure where we were going to get books. We didn't have the blue bins yet, right? But Judy had reached out to someone to find out where they would get a bin, and they called back, and the next thing you know, a delivery of 40,000 books is coming to the kids book bank, and that's when the facility was identified, and everything started to move real quickly there, and the community just wrapped around us and came in and started sorting the books and all of those things. COVID, getting through COVID is another huge milestone where staff was like, well, what do we do? Partners aren't meeting. They're not meeting with families. How would we get the books out? And that's when we partnered with the food bank and other food pantries and said, they're still going to get their food. Let's make sure they get their books too. So there's been a lot of magical moments like that. And I'm sure there's many more to come with the next chapter.
So, Natalie, you've been in this role now for the past few months. What are some of those initial reflections and lessons that you've had as you've taken the lead?
Well, it's interesting, right? So prior to this, some of you may know me from the P16 in Slavic Village, and that's when I worked with the white bearded man, Kurt Carrickle, and I really learned about the literacy emergency, and I was kind of curious, like, why is this still a thing, right? So when you walk into the book bank and you see all of these books, and you think, if this wasn't here, where would the books go, and where would kids get books? Right? So it's real obvious when you walk in that this is such a necessary thing. And when you see the orders that are coming through, and we have to limit the number of books that we can put out because we don't have enough space to store all the books and all of that, and you have the volunteers processing them. The other aha moment is just it needs to be bigger, and it needs to be more collaborative. I saw a question from Becky about reach out and read. I don't know if I was supposed to see that or not, but I did. So with that, yes, we do. We partner with all of the literacy organizations, and that's what's so cool about Cleveland, and what we need to continue to stress is there is enough for everyone. It's not a competition. Let's figure out how to do it and do it right. And I really want Cleveland, and I'm sure you all on the call would want Cleveland to be the leader in changing literacy rates throughout this country.
So, now looking ahead to chapter two, you've mentioned the new facility, the ability to expand and meet the needs. What additional ideas, visions do you have as you look ahead to that chapter two?
Oh, this is a loaded question because we're about to start strategic planning here for the Kids Book Bank. So if you all have ideas, send them my way. I love that stuff. But yeah, just like I said, having kids on site, right? Allowing the space to be a space where authors can come, where writers could come, where we celebrate all that is reading, not just the books themselves. But we will always stay in our lane in terms of knowing that the access is what we are really good at. We don't tend to go into programming in that regard. We know there are many, many wonderful organizations doing that work. We want to support that work and make sure that we're doing what we can to keep the books flowing.
For those who are interested in volunteering, what are some of the guidelines? How old do you have to be? Can groups come in?
Mhm. So right now, and again, hopefully with this capital campaign, it's going to go really fast. So I really encourage all of you. I'm taking a mental note of all the names on the screen as well as the list of RSVPs, and you will probably get an invitation from me to come down and actually see what this is and what it's going to be, because it's going to be epic and I want you to be a part of it. Um, but this concept of um, taking what we already have done and really blowing it up. Like that's the key. And there's no way we're going to be able to do that. You heard 4 full-time staff, 11 part-time staff. Like that's not what makes this run. Love you all, Jessica and everybody else. Like we are really great. We're a great team, but we can't do it without those partnerships. So volunteering for us looks like um, 13 and over for any given shift right now. And family shifts happen once a month, so you can volunteer on a family shift. But this group right here, you could call individually and look online. There's a waiting list, like I said, but if you know somebody, just call. Like we can usually fit you in, or if there's a waiting list for those shifts, we can try to get you in. Um, if not before we move, then gosh, come see the new space, right? And that's where, 20 people a shift, that's not very many. And the work that they get done in 2 hours is pretty impressive. So in the new space, we'd be able to do upwards of 60 volunteers at a time and lots of different opportunities. And Jessica also has ambassadors that are volunteers that do external events, distribution events for us out in the community. So when we say come and volunteer, if being in a warehouse isn't your thing, there's always a space for you. We will find a place for you in our story.
And Natalie, as you see the requests coming in and asks for books, what's the popular children's book right now? What are most people looking for?
Oh, I love that you're asking that because you can't order by title. That would be crazy. And we don't have inventory like that. But what I can tell you is that our early readers, our early literacy, Cleveland is so inundated with amazing early literacy partners that are really wrapped around starting young and making sure our kids are successful. And so those books go really, really quickly. So if there was a house that was sitting on a bunch of picture books and board books, I'd say get them to us as soon as possible because we really do need those. But we have a strategy, and so 70% of our books go out to early childhood, about 25%, I would say, is school age, and then 5% is our high school kids, mostly because they're probably going to the library and getting their books anyway, or maybe using devices, but we know that holding a book is super special. And we're looking at other ways that we can engage that high school group, target group, to be more involved. And we get a lot of those groups coming in to do the volunteer work. Those high school groups are doing the book drives for us all across the community. And it's so great when they come in because they'll be looking at the books. They're supposed to be processing them, right? And you'll just see them sit down and just start reading. And if that's what it takes, we'll do it.
Well, we have time for one more question. And as this is the holiday season, Nellie, what is bringing you joy as we look towards the end of 2024?
Oh, the joy is so finding out who are the characters in this next chapter. I can't wait to meet everyone. I'm so excited to be a part of this, and truly everyone is getting books from me for Christmas.
Well, Natalie, we thank you and your amazing team for all the work that you are doing. The book bank is a favorite among CLC groups for volunteering and learning about your amazing mission. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing what comes in this next chapter.
Thank you.